All right, YouTubers, today I'm going to be working on my Triumph. It's a Triumph Speedmaster 2003. You'll see it here in just a second, but just going to wash it up a little bit here. Had a few trips on it, short trips in town, nothing out of town, but been riding it for a while, kind of my daily rider, if you will. And so going to be working on that here in a little bit, just kind of cleaning it up. And then I'm going to give a quick review and install video for my Viking Bags. So here's my bike. You can see I'm going to be modifying this and doing several different modifications over the next probably, I don't know, month or two, over wintertime. Wintertime's coming up here in just a little bit, so that way I can just kind of take my time. I'm going to be blacking everything out, so anything you see on there as far as chrome and everything, I'm going to be probably blacking that out and taking that to the powder coaters, or actually painting a lot of the chrome, so depending upon where the location is and stuff. But these are my old bags. You can see right there, it's the Triumph brand. So these are the Triumph kind of bags, but they've been kind of worn and tattered over the years, and one little clip busted there. But this bike has been laid down, not by me, it was from a buddy of mine, got in a wreck and kind of laid it down. So it's got a few dents and dings on it, but it's pretty sharp other than that. But the bags did take a toll, and then being outside and whatnot, just kind of weathered. So I'm going to be taking those off and doing a little bit different style. You'll see that when I do my install video here in just a little bit. But I'm going to clean it up, wash it up here, and then pop this in the garage so we're not getting any crazy kind of sun and shadows and all that crazy stuff as far as the lighting and everything. And it is very windy out here today, so hopefully this video is filming okay. I do have my muff on my Rode mic, so it's probably blowing 10-15 miles an hour, a little gusts here and there up to 20. But so yeah, just kind of check it out. But I'll see you here in just a little bit once my bike's all cleaned up. Alright, so here is the whole list, or all the components in this Viking bag. So I actually am going to do what's called a quick disconnect system instead of a throwover bag. So I had throwover bags on there before. It's okay, I'd rather have a quick disconnect. That way, you know, if I'm not going to be needing the bags, I can just take those off. And if you see right here, there's actually keys and a quick disconnect system that I'm going to be putting on. This bike is actually a 2003 Triumph Speedmaster. Great bike, love it. Got an amazing deal from a buddy of mine, couldn't turn it down, and it's I would call it my daily rider now. I do live here in Texas, in the northern Texas area in DFW. The Dallas-Fort Worth area, and it is about 47 degrees and kind of misting, possible sleet later today. So this day I work on projects like this when it's bad weather. But Viking packed up everything extremely well. There is 2 sets of instructions, so if you want to do the typical throwover bag, you can do that, or order the additional disconnect system from them. I'll put the description and the links below. But you could order that. That's what I'm going with, so hopefully this turns out well. Instructions look pretty clear, and so let's go ahead and get to it, and we'll see kind of how it goes here. All right, so one of the first things we've got to do is just remove our fender bolts here. I just kind of threw these in as temporary because of my old system was, like I said, throw over. So you go ahead and remove these, and go from there. And I'm just going to do one side at a time. If you remove all these fender bolts, your fender is going to drop down and make this process a little bit more difficult. So I would just take one side off at a time. So I'm definitely going to do that, and then we'll kind of go from there. So let me get these off. I rode this bike the last couple of days, just a couple of quick short trips. I had to run some errands and stuff, and I'd already pulled off my old system and didn't want to put all the bags and all that stuff back on there, and I didn't have time to put all this stuff on there, so just kind of threw those bolts in there. That way I could still ride it. But you can see right now, I mean, the fender is going to be, it's going to stay pretty well, so it won't be too bad. And then we'll take that final bolt off there if we need to. So not quite sure if we need to take that one off or not. So I'm going to leave that one in just for a second. And then we'll see here in just a moment if we've got to take that one off or not. So we'll kind of go from there. Cool. All right, so we got the Viking mounting kit. This is our hardware, and I believe this hardware kit is going to be, okay, cool. Yeah, for the hard mount, beautiful. So we'll actually be mounting this system to the bags themselves. We will have to make some holes in the bags to mount that hardware. Makes me a little nervous, but we'll be okay. We'll line it all up, and hopefully everything turns out all right. Y'all will find out here in a little while, I guess. All right, cool. Raw test. Step one, cool, good. Oh, step one, by the way, make sure your bike's not running and it's cool enough to work on. So, I guess, gotta put those type of details in here. So, some of us don't make that type of mistake, huh? So removing the fender bolts, got those out. So that's step two. And then now step three is going to be mounting the docking post at each of the two fenders. Fender holes, so I got a little bit of work. These instructions are pretty vague, so just a little time here to just kind of figure that out. So give me a few moments and we'll figure that out. Alright guys, so step three in the process, so that I left you off with, was mounting the docking post. You can see these docking posts right here. Hopefully you can kind of make that out. They've got kind of a groove in there, if you will. Both of these posts, so one here, and had to mount those. Now, kind of a lesson learned, they do include a lot of hardware, a lot of spacers. You've got all kinds of options, the washers, all kinds of stuff, but just kind of lesson learned. Let me kind of take you through this here real quick. So one of the things I figured out is on the back, like if you look at the back of the bike here, you can hopefully see this. It's a little bit thicker here, and then it flares back here and is thinner. So you need that spacer in there to make sure that this is lined up and your grooves here are lined up so that it looks kind of like this once you get your kind of mount on there. So this is the quick release mount that I'm going to be mounting the bags to, but you can kind of see that's got to be lined up. So when I first started, I was like, man, I think these things are just binding up like crazy. Well, yeah, because this first one here is inside, so it's kind of like I would have to almost bend my bracket in order to make that work. So I figured out that spacer in there worked perfectly. Now on the other side, hopefully you can kind of see that in there. If I zoom in just a little bit here, I had to add two more really thin washers back behind that spacer. Another spacer was too much for it to work, so I needed just a couple of small washers. So that's what I did to make sure that the process was working effectively for me. So let me go ahead and put this camera back on tripod here. Scoot back just a little bit. And let me show you kind of what I've done here. So this is the bracket that slides on and back and forth. I am going to Dremel this out just to smooth it out just a little bit. For me, kind of sliding that back and forth, you can see kind of where it's worn. I'm going to smooth that out just a little bit more, so it will actually go on these guideposts a little bit smoother. But that's all it is. It's going to slide right in there. Now, keep in mind, this is going to be attached to our saddlebags. Once that's all the way in, your key will then slide into the lock position. You do have to, when you're kind of going back and forth, leave that key in there in the unlock position when you're kind of finagling this back and forth to figure that out. But once you get this lined up, and these slide all the way, so you've got plenty of working, room to work there on both sides, so you can slide this back and forth wherever you need to. This was a position I liked, and then underneath here, The instructions are pretty good. You tighten screws A, which are underneath, and that'll tighten this bracket up. Then you've got a couple of bolts in here. I took those bolts out because when I'm lining up my saddle bags to mark those, my bolts are going to be going in, you know, here. I'll probably go here, 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 and here on my saddle bags. But those bolts were in the way and I couldn't get that flush to mark it, so I pulled those two bolts out. The screws from underneath are going to hold it fine, so you're good there. This is nice and tight, and we're able to kind of get it aligned there. So let me show you what I did as far as the alignment process to get the bags lined up and get those in there so I can get those kind of squared away. So I'm going to show you my process here in a little bit. I actually used a ratchet strap. I had my wife out here for all of maybe 2 minutes. I don't know if she's like your wives or girlfriends or significant others, but she wasn't willing to help. But I had her out here. She was holding it and wanted her to kind of reposition a few times. She was getting irritated, and I was just like, hey, you know what? I've got to, you know, kind of adjust a few more things. Go ahead and go inside. Let me figure out just kind of as far as mounting and making sure that I've got everything correct, and then I'll have you come back out. And so it took a few minutes to do that, just kind of figuring out really where I wanted them. Went back in, and she's in the bathtub. So I was like, really? How are you supposed to hold this for me? So with that being said, let me show you what I did to be able to hold these bags so I can get them marked. That way, then we've got to screw, or actually drill through the saddle bags into, and then, you know, of course, put the bolts onto these mounts. So I didn't want those bags moving around at all. I wanted to make sure they're completely even. I don't know if you're like me, but I'm very particular and kind of a perfectionist. So I want my bags to be exactly even and in the right position. So let me show you what I did.